Hi, my name is Jared, and this is Horror Obsession. Today, Slasher School continues. With a lecture on the disappearing body trope. This one might take a little bit of explanation, so bear with me. You know how in slasher movies, after the killer butchers some unsuspecting teen who wandered away from the safety of the group, and then the final girl or another character wander into the same area the killing took place, only to dramatically pull covers away or open a door and then find the body is gone? This is the disappearing body trope. The killer essentially moves the body of one or more of his victims, but why would they do that? Well, first of all, I want to talk about how staggeringly unrealistic moments like this are. If you've ever stabbed someone in the stomach, you'd know there is a ridiculous amount of blood that spews out. I have heard that if you stab someone in the stomach, a ridiculous amount of blood spills out. In slasher movies, whenever a body disappears like this, apparently all of the blood goes with them and there is no trace whatsoever of the body in the room. Also, if you've ever killed someone and tried to move the body, you'd know. If you have ever tried to help carry an unconscious person out of a dangerous situation, you would know that carrying a completely limp body is extremely difficult. Slasher killers always manage to do it without any difficulty, but what is the function of this for the writers of slasher films? The primary reason to have your villain disappear bodies is to delay the starting gun. You can have a character, for example a kid or your final girl, try to convince people something terrible is going on, and then when the parents or other authority figures go to investigate, the body or evidence is gone. That way, the starting gun doesn't happen until much later, and keeps the victims from recruiting help from the police or others. Check out my previous video in this series for an explanation of why moving the starting gun back can be a useful tool for maintaining suspense in a slasher movie. Another reason to have the bodies disappear is so you can have them all pop up at the end of the movie.
Why can't they find their pops, man?
Because he's probably dead. His body will come popping up in the last reel somewhere. Eyes gouged out, fingers cut off, teeth knocked out.
This is becoming less common as the genre moves into its 7th decade, but for a very long time the climax of the movie followed the blueprint of Halloween, and had bodies fall from the ceiling for a solid jump scare right after the starting gun. This once again begs the question of how the villain managed to set up this body booby trap, and maybe more importantly, why? But like many choices made in horror movies, the answer is obvious. The makers of the movie did it with an eye on scaring the audience. Realism be damned. Having bodies fall from the ceiling at the end of the movie makes actually zero sense in the logic of a typical slasher, but it is fun to see and a good reminder of all the kills you got to watch earlier. Slasher movies should have rising and falling tension and suspense, otherwise the audience will become desensitized to the elevated tension and end up paradoxically getting bored with it. It takes an incredibly talented director to maintain suspense throughout an entire movie, but even if you can, the question is, should you?
Is there a scene you wouldn't do over again? Are you sorry you did?
I'd made the mistake in not relieving them at the end of the suspense. In other words, if you put an audience through the mill like that, you must relieve it.
In some ways, the change in emotion the movie evokes in an audience is more important than the emotion itself, in the same way our brains learn to tune out a smell after a period of time, or the same way we have all collectively learned to tune out Dane Cook. My point is, the disappearing body trope also functions to release the suspense that's been building in the movie, allowing the director to then start building the suspense again in subsequent scenes. And that break is absolutely necessary for the audience's enjoyment of the film. As a quick aside, this is part of the appeal of slasher movies for me. They are like a dark fairy tale that follows its own internal logic, where everyone trips while running away, bodies don't bleed like I know they would, like I've heard they would. Police never believe people about bad things happening because, sir, this is a quiet town where nothing dangerous ever happens. and escaped mental patients can easily pick up and move a tombstone or 4 bodies and carry them all the way across town to set up a jump scare for the audience's sake. I love this surrealistic, bordering on fantasy take where villains can come back to life by being struck with lightning or similarly ridiculous moments. If you want a hyper-realistic movie which accurately captures the drama and emotions about life, go watch Boyhood.
You know how everyone's always saying, seize the moment? I don't know, I'm kind of thinking it's the other way around. You know, like, the moment seizes us.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, it's constant. The moments, it's just...
This brings me along to another thing I love about slashers, which is the stakes in every scene are always high. You might not care about the characters, though in good slashers you will, but you will go into every scene knowing there is a strong possibility the character on screen might die, even when it's someone famous like Drew Barrymore, or the final girl like Alice in Friday the 13th Part 2, anyone can die at any moment. Dramas and chick flicks, as 2 examples, lose some luster for me because generally the stakes are one or more characters might get sad if things don't work out.
There's a lot worse stuff that's happening today, and like, I mean, what, a couple people getting killed by one guy with a knife is not that big of a deal.
Sorry for getting off on that tangent, but what lecture would be complete without your professor ranting about some nonsensical topic he's extremely passionate about? The bottom line is the disappearing body trope exists to delay the starting gun, to set up the jump scares from the falling bodies at the end of the movie, and to subvert the expectations of the audience during those slow investigative scenes when you're expecting them to find a body. Up next, I'm going to discuss the investigative strange noise trope, one of my favorite tropes in the slasher genre.